Well, thank you everybody for joining us once again for our weekly webinar series. Week 3, we are over halfway through it. This week is crafting your story. Hopefully you guys have all dialed in on your idea well enough that you've been addressing market fit and your basic financials and are ready to start putting this together in a story that you can use to raise support when you are speaking with other people out in the real world about it. We would like to thank, as always, our primary sponsor, the Burke Center for Entrepreneurship at the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. Without their support, this project would not be possible. And also our other partners at Seattle University, Simon Fraser University, University of Oregon, Eastern Washington, University of Puget Sound, Cascadia College, Evergreen, Washington State, University of British Columbia, University of Idaho, Oregon State, Portland Community College, and Central, North, and South Seattle colleges. Our presenter tonight, April Atwood, has been teaching marketing concepts for decades at Seattle University and also at the Bainbridge Graduate Institute, which later became Pinchot University. She is expert in particular in, I believe it was social media triangulation and customer identification, if I remember correctly. I might have messed that up. But without further ado, I will let her take it away. She has a really wonderful presentation for you guys here tonight.
Okay, let me share my screen. Get the right one up. All righty, looks good. Oh, now I need to make you all bigger again. Okay, thanks for the intro, Brian. I actually taught at University of Washington in the business school, even before it was called the Foster School, for quite a long time, longer than some of these students have been alive, probably. And as Brian said, I've taught at Bainbridge Graduate Institute, which is a program focused on sustainable business, and through their different sort of evolutionary phases, the one thing that was constant through much of that was their focus on entrepreneurship. So this sort of hackathon fits right in with, it's like, oh, I have so many, mentally I just keep getting revisited by these other groups and other projects that I've helped students with over the years. And it's like, oh yeah, this group, they really struggled with this. Oh, this other group, they had to keep working on that or whatever. So this is, I just think it's the most fun stuff to talk about. I'm hoping that you haven't left behind completely the notions about market fit that you talked about last week, because part of what I'm going to talk about is really still working on figuring out, exactly, what is the market out there and how can we appeal to them. So it's relevant to market fit, as well as beginning to figure out how you want to put together, how do you want to, kind of what angle you want to take in describing how your proposed business is going to succeed. So that's as far as as I will take you in crafting your story. We're not going to go all the way to, gee, come up with an advertising tagline. We're not going to get that specific yet. It's really not appropriate yet. Okay, so let me, there we go. Get the stuff on the right screen. I'm going to talk a little bit first about kind of how I approached this, the whole question of crafting your story and understanding both the market and the offer. It's actually while I was at teaching with BGI, Bainbridge Graduate Institute, that I worked with a colleague who was a designer at IDEO. And that's where I first encountered the whole notion of human-centered design. And while human-centered design focuses on, kind of understanding people, it also considers a lot of technology and also economics. What makes for, what would it take for it to be viable longer term, and finds the sweet spot right there in the middle. I think actually there's an updated version of that sort of Venn diagram that looks more like this, that considers economic feasibility, economic viability, what's technologically feasible, what's customers, but also what's ethical. And I really like that kind of added consideration of just because we can, should we? Does it truly achieve the outcomes we need to see? That's a question that I think we can just keep asking ourselves throughout this project and other projects. It's like, well, there's lots of, even in the discovery techniques that we're going to talk about tonight, there's a lot of possible directions you could go. So, one of your screening criteria may end up being along the lines of what this diagram calls ethical, but is this necessary? Is it really adding? Whose life is this adding to? Along the human-centered design thinking is that we're all designing, and especially coming up with a new business. You are designing this new business. The basic design process starts with empathizing, and that's what we're going to spend quite a bit of time there tonight, learning about your audience, right? That's part of market fit as well. Then you define, you create, you figure out what you can do that would be appealing to the audience. Then kind of a little bit further down the road, brainstorm different ideas, different approaches, different iterations, you prototype it, come up with an example of it, and then you test it out, see how it works, and you iterate. Iteration is just kind of a necessary aspect of the process. Iterate, 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 iterate. You may have heard that before, but it's especially in the early stages, especially in the early days, businesses are organized. I'm not talking only about for-profit businesses. I'm talking about any sort of startup organization. You just got to keep adjusting until you find something that works for you with sort of internally within your organizational members as well as with your audience. So tonight, this basic approach, we're going to focus first on empathize and look a little bit more about how do we figure out, how do we learn about that audience that we're trying to design something for. So the question, who is my user and what matters to this person, are key. The strategizer folks who wrote the business model canvas book, which is the way lots and lots of startups are described these days, also came up with the value, I can hold it up, the value proposition design book, which if you haven't seen it, is definitely worth going to their website and looking around. They have a lot of the diagrams of it. And they use this empathy map. So this is a nice place to start in terms of empathizing with your audience, trying to figure out how they work. Who are they? What do they care about? And basically that involves asking a lot of questions. So you give a basic description of, here's what we're kind of interested in, and then you ask questions. And you see what they say. Asking why. Why do you say that? Oh, really? Why is that important to you? Oh, really? Why is that a problem? Or how often is that a problem? Or, to what extent is that a problem? You got to just be able to ask questions. And we find insights into both the pains and the gains. Those are going to translate into a different analysis sheet later. That is, what do they worry about? What are they anxious about? And also, what are they wishing for in terms of gains? As well as all the surrounding stuff is just a way to understand better how they're thinking. Also, it provides valuable insights into the language that they use to describe their situation, so that later when you're wanting to appeal to that audience, you've got a lot of words and phrases that will work with them. This is how folks in that situation, in that target market, whatever it is, target audience, how they think about it, how they conceptualize their situation or a potential solution to their problems. So I don't know, my approach to marketing has always been from the consumer level, understand your audience, and how do you do that? Through marketing research. So I need to take a slight side tour for a moment and talk a little bit about this. What you're doing is marketing research here, right? How marketing research is defined is off here to the side. And I put reduce in red. It really does aim to reduce uncertainty and risk. It doesn't say eliminate uncertainty and risk. We wish, right? We wish we could get rid of uncertainty, but that's not possible. But doing marketing research does provide more information to allow you to make better decisions than otherwise. Right, the diagram, you know, why do we do research? Why are you doing research now? Well, you're working on discovering precise consumer targets, really, and the bottom, the orange bubble, providing consumer insights. That's probably the biggest one. That's what this kind of research is meant to yield. Understanding customer needs is part of it as well. Advantage over competition, you may gain some insights into that from listening to people talk about the situation that your business is trying to address. Things like demographics and industry information, you're probably going to find through different means, not through the exploratory means that we're talking about tonight. So if you take marketing classes, you know, they talk about marketing research and talk about it there's sort of like two big kinds of marketing research. Secondary research, I'll talk about first, ironically, is searching for information that's already been published. It's already out there. Somebody else has done the research, they gathered it up, they wrote it up, and all you have to do is find it, right? These days, so much of it can be found without moving away from your computer screen, and lots of public sources. There's also commercial sources, so you can hire folks to help you with marketing research and gather up research that's been published. There's also educational institutions, woohoo, and you're all connected with one. And the reference librarians are your friend. They live for this. I keep telling my students, go to them. This is what they're trained to do. Students are like, oh, I don't know. Maybe they feel silly or stupid for not knowing the answer themselves. And I said, no. The librarians love having students come in and say, or contact them and say, oh, I've got this question, this problem, this situation, this idea that I'm interested in, and where could I find information about something? And the librarians know about so many more databases than us normal people, I shouldn't say normal, us mere non-librarian people. They have access to tons of information that we don't know about. We just don't know about. That's their specialty. So do not hesitate to make use of reference librarians. They won't resent this at all. They will appreciate it. And this is fun for them. This is what they love to do. So secondary research is a really good place to start. And then there's primary research. That's research that you gather yourself. That's the research that you do when your secondary research doesn't yield useful answers, or there's still some questions that secondary research just doesn't seem to address. Maybe nothing has been published about your specific industry in the region that you're considering. Or maybe you just can't find the sort of nagging questions, a couple lingering questions that don't seem to be represented in the databases that turn up under secondary research. So you can do quantitative research, which is quantitative, what it sounds like. That's what most people think of when they think marketing research. They think surveys, oh, do a survey online. Just put a survey online, no problem. It's like, oh, well, there's lots of problems actually with, if you're trying to represent a target audience, that's a tall order. You statistically represent an audience of interest. There's also qualitative research. So beyond doing surveys or questionnaires, you can also do more kind of small scale, right? Focus groups or in-depth or interviews with people, like talk to people. It may not be statistically representative, but it may provide amazing insights. And that's actually the kind of research that's so helpful when your enterprise is at the stage that your projects are at. So exploratory research is where we're starting. That's the kind of the first step in starting out. And that is generating insights. So for any sort of open-ended questions that you have, what do people like about this? What do they dislike about that? What are they thinking about this? How do they describe that? Exploratory research is the way to go. And there's a bunch of different methodologies, as we see in the diagram on the left, a bunch of different ways to gather this sort of early stage. You're learning about, you're just learning about what you should be paying attention to, right? The diagram on the bottom right, I really appreciate it. I haven't seen this before, but it talks about the importance of offline research. Awesome. This is awesome. And it's so necessary. I mean, you can hire a consultant, you can do online research, but it's like, what do you mean offline research? Well, you actually talk to people, or you go to where they are, or you put yourself through the experience that they're trying to have or that they want to have, or you put yourself in their position, or you compare or sort of do mystery shopping online or in person to see, well, what else is out there and how do other companies do this and how do you, so actually talking to people is just hugely valuable. A colleague that I taught with for a while in the sustainability program was active on the board for Guayaki, which is that drink from Central America or South America. He described the research that they did before they introduced it in the US. And he said they went to, I think he said Venice Beach in California. And they talked to a bunch of people who were like surfing, like surfer dudes, is how he described them. And just sort of talked to them about, well, do you know anything about mate? And, what sort of energy drinks or what sort of, beverages do you use? And gather enough information that way that he said that was the information they gathered before they actually launched the product. I was like, really? You didn't do surveys? You didn't do a representative sample? You didn't do any of the more formal kinds of approaches? And he said they couldn't afford it. Like, does that sound familiar too? I mean, that's with startups. So, so this offline research, just sort of talking to people, talking to as many people. I think I said this last week, even I burst in to say, you want to talk to many, many people and to gather insight. You know that you're not going to get statistically representative responses. You know that you're not on sound statistical ground to say, well, this percent of our sample, 10% of our sample thought it was a terrible idea. So I know that 10% out there would think it's a terrible idea. No, you can't generalize the results of what you're getting, but it provides helpful insights. So at this stage, that's a really good place to focus. Okay, so that's the empathizing, essentially trying to get inside the head of the people that you think you're going to be appealing to. And just sort of talking is a really good place to start. So the diagram on the right here, the empathy map, this version of it was facing the other direction. I don't know why. Same basic ideas here. So you take that information that you've gathered from your telephone discussions, your online discussions, your personal interviews, your focus groups, and you transfer it into this value proposition canvas. So this value proposition canvas is sort of the main part of the foundation of what this book provides. It does a lot of talking about, here's our framework, and then they go into detail about the empathy map side of it, and they go into detail about the value proposition side of it, which is the product side. So it's fairly simple to use, and I think hugely helpful. I think it's a really good framework to start with. There's a place on the value proposition canvas on the top with this little smile for gains from the discussions that you've had with people. There's a place down below that with a little frown that's pains. And then off to the right with the check marks is jobs. So those are the three sort of categories of things that you talk to your target audience about. So I'm going to talk about what those are kind of like for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to try it out. So So let's start with jobs. It's on the right side. So basically, you want to know, what does your target consumer, what do they need to accomplish? What are they looking for? What kind of problem do they have to solve? What are they trying to do? And so what comes to mind first is some sort of functional answer, right? Well, I need an easier way to schedule my appointments. Beyond thinking about functional, though, you want to think about, what else are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish for themselves? Which might not be obvious to somebody looking from the outside, right? Because there might be some social aspects. There might be some aspect of, well, I want an easier way to schedule appointments, but I don't want to look like I'm bumbling around using it. I want to appear to be very efficient. Or I want other people to think of me as fill in the blank. I mean, to the extent that other consideration of other people enters in at all to what they personally want to accomplish, there might be a social goal there too, as well as a functional solve the problem sort of goal. There might be some sort of personal or emotional goal. That is, maybe I want to feel secure, that my information is held securely, that it's not going to be shared. I want to feel safe, or I want to feel, relaxed about it, or I want to feel, maybe I want, in doing this, I want to feel like I'm having fun too, right? So there may be some other things that I'm looking for out of my problem solving situation. And there might be some other sort of supporting, they call them supporting or ancillary kinds of jobs, having to do with, well, I have a budget that I have to stay within, or I have, there may be constraints, or there may be specific situational aspects they need to consider. So just figuring out about the functional, see, I fell into the trap. You don't want to just think about the functional job, but thinking about the jobs, like, what do you need? What are you trying to do here? What are you trying to accomplish? You want to understand that from the perspective of your target audience. And there are probably aspects that they will bring up that you will think, I don't think that way. Like, that's the point. That's why you're doing research. And we're not judgmental about it. Well, we could be, but that wouldn't be a very good sort of long-term strategy for business. Just think, oh, well, if you're trying to accomplish that, if you're trying to, achieve some sort of social status goal, then forget it. It's like, okay, well, then maybe we're, shifting our sense of who our target market is. So, so really understanding from the perspective of your target market is the goal. Beyond the jobs, what they're trying to accomplish, we also want to ask them about their pains. What annoys them right now, before or during or after the time when they're trying to accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish in terms of their jobs? What sorts of risks do they perceive? What feels risky to them as they're trying to accomplish those jobs? What sorts of barriers stand in their way from them being able to accomplish their jobs? Those are the pains. And again, it's from your target market, your customer's perspective. Hugely valuable. And then on the top of it, the little smiley section is the gains. So gains is, what are outcomes that you're looking for? What sorts of benefits are you seeking? And in terms of both the pains and the gains, it's really helpful to get the person to be as specific as they can be. It'll help you understand them better. And it also, gains are not just, well, avoiding all the pains, but there may be other things that people would really love, different benefits that they would really love to get out of the experience. So often asking, sort of questioning to help them get more specific is a good way to accomplish that. So in talking with them, how they see the world and think and feel about the world, and what they're hearing from people that talk to them, all go into kind of how they think about their job, what it is they're trying to get done, and that multiple aspects of that job, as well as what problems do they have, and like, what would their dream situation be like? What would be a, really add to their life? What would be a real gain? Okay, so I guess I'll pause now and say questions before we try it out. Okay. So Brian, we're going to ask you to be the representative of the target market. So he could be a pretty naive,
Okay.
I mean, he's not in on the research. He's the one that you're going to be questioning. And then we need a group who wants to, describe their offer at a very basic level, what they're thinking about, what's the general realm of what they're thinking about. And then just take a few minutes. This is not going to be super long, but take a few minutes and the group gets to ask Brian questions to help uncover those jobs, those pains, and those gains.
Okay, who wants it? Which team? Are they, Xenia, did we configure it for them to unmute themselves?
Yeah, they,
Okay, all right.
I think so. But we had someone speak to Dave before.
Yep. Well, Ashley, you guys want to lead with this one?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
I was holding back because we have a bit of a complicated situation that we are exploring. So our idea is to partner with hotels undergoing renovations and take their soft goods, their upholstered furniture, and channel the furniture to several different outlets for redistribution, one of them being upholstery shops who will then reupholster the furniture pieces in an environmentally friendly capacity and sell them to end consumers. So we have two revenue streams identified. One is the service that we're providing to the hotel managers and taking furniture off their hands. The other would be the end consumers who are purchasing the high-end reupholstered furniture.
And I guess for this sake, Brian, it might be, since unless you happen to work at like a hotel, but maybe we can use Brian as like pretending that he is a potential, just a potential consumer. I don't, what do you think?
Probably easier.
Do you want us to just ask you questions? Is that what you'd like us to do?
Yeah, so what would you want to ask this? I mean, this is an awesome opportunity, right? You've got a potential consumer here. What would you want to know from them that will help you better sort of craft what you provide, what your service and product might be?
And you know what? I can, whichever one you want to do first, I can fake being a hotel manager, sure.
You
I'd
have
be a consumer too. Can Heather be a consumer too?
Sure, why don't we do that?
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a focus group, even better.
Cool. Okay, so Brian, or who's the other one? Heather?
Heather,
That's
yeah.
Heather. And we're gonna be consumers at first.
Okay, so first question would be, what is the most popular item in your house that you tend to shop for as far as furniture goes?
Ooh.
Chairs. Dining room chairs.
Chairs.
Because we kind of trash them and we need new ones every now and then.
How often is every now and then?
Well, like every 5 years. So the only times that we've ever bought a sofa were when we moved to a new house, or when we first got married, or when we started living together. So me and my husband and I. So we don't buy sofas and things like that, big furniture, very often. But when we moved to a new house, we did buy some bedroom furniture and things like that. And then, but the thing that we buy more frequently is dining room type chairs, because we tend to trash them.
And when you are in those phases of purchasing, where do you tend to go to as far as your provider? Is it online? Is it more of the brick and mortar? And if you could share some examples of places where you have purchased.
Well, I'm probably a good consumer for you because I prefer to buy vintage or antique. So used furniture stores, antique malls, well, to some degree Goodwill, but not really. I mean, more like used furniture stores and consignment stores, and estate sales.
And aside
Yeah,
from
same
purchasing
here.
previously owned, what other factors do you consider when making those purchases? What's
Okay, well, so
important to
I
you?
only like to get things that are made out of real materials. So like, wood or metal, not like plastic. I guess plastic is real, but you know what I mean? More natural fibers things. And Xenia is a really good consumer too, because she just bought a bunch of furniture. So you can ask her some questions in a minute.
Oh yeah.
Because she just bought a house. So she's gonna be a perfect consumer for you in a minute. Anyway, so I also like generally to have things that have minimal upholstery because I'm very suspicious of toxic chemicals in the upholstery. Why don't you ask Xenia this question too? Because she literally just bought a ton of furniture.
And we had a couple of words with Ashley. I did think about the furniture that looks great, looks timeless. That's important for us. And we also thought about great pieces that could be upholstered, but we couldn't find anything that really suit us because we're picky.
She is picky.
What were the factors that weren't up to snuff in the pieces you looked at?
Sorry, can you please repeat?
Sure, yeah, you said that you couldn't find something you liked because you're too picky. And I'm curious what factors or characteristics of the furniture that you did look at weren't meeting your needs or your preferences.
To be honest, we didn't look at many thrift stores. My husband doesn't believe that it can be really pretty. We looked at the quality of fabric, of the materials. That was important, and the look should be timeless, something like classic or like modern century, mid-century modern style, something that can hold value for a really long time and you're not sick of it.
Yeah, when I think about what I've looked for over the years, it has usually been when I'm moving into a new place that I'm getting another big piece of furniture or getting rid of a big piece of furniture. And the thing about the thrift shops and the estate sales is that, God, there's just so much overhead to go to these places, and then hopefully they're going to have what I'm looking for. I mean, I've encountered some shops where they'll try to put their stuff online, and I love that. I would love to be able to, browse it online, because I also find that a lot of the used stuff is just it just looks kind of crappy. I mean, it's we could do better at like furniture design in America, I think. There's some room for improvement there, and so that's probably why Xenia maybe finds it hard to find stuff she likes. I find it hard to find stuff that I like too, and for all the same reasons. I want something that's just not all
and will last
or something, and will last. Yeah, it's solid. I mean, it gets so irritating to buy something that doesn't.
So I think Xenia can speak to buying online. I don't like to buy furniture online because I want to sit in the chair. I want to see if it's comfortable. I want to see the height of the table if it's comfortable. I want to see if the drawers are easy to get in and out.
Well, so I don't want to buy it entirely online though.
Yeah, I know, but I don't buy it at all online. But Xenia
go there.
Let's let Xenia explain her online buying, because you did buy stuff online, right?
Yeah, because also COVID hit and we had to buy a bunch of different stuff. It was a nightmare. You never can guess what's the color, how it feels like. You can only rely on your expectation or like, I don't know, feelings, how it all fit together. So there is also big room for how to describe to a consumer the texture, the real color. I even had a business idea how to define a real color. So, and that process made me think about so there is so much room to make an experience of a customer or a person who buys furniture more pleasant, and then you're not buying like a cat in the bag. There is a lot of expectations thing, a big room for improvement and business opportunity.
So this already, right? And this was only a few minutes. Look at all the different insights, right? And the different perspectives. I mean, we've got different consumers here. They each make the decision in a different way. But they also, I mean, I think they don't describe their job. The jobs that they're working on aren't exactly the same. Some people are buying something to last, something that, you know, in the past, they haven't held up well. So maybe we're really looking for something holding up. There may be some, you know, elements of, you know, timeless style. And then you go, oh boy, how do you define that? And how does someone else define that? We also heard pains, right? What makes it hard? And we also heard gains in terms of, you know, in an ideal sense, what would we really like? What benefits would we really be looking for? Or what would be like considered a bonus? It'd be awesome if it included this, or it'd be great if, you know, and there again, if you can have them talk about in person versus online, but the whole problem of being able to represent colors is fascinating, right? And that's kind of important to a lot of people. And then other people, maybe they're not so worried about the color. They'll figure it goes with, it'll go, but they may be more concerned with, you know, knowing the soundness of the construction, and how do you convey that too? So it's already, and it doesn't take too long, right? To talk. This is, having 3 people is great. Having a small group that you can discuss with. This is very, very feasible to do on Zoom or, you know, similar platform. And in many ways, you know, you can get people talking to each other and just listen to the way they talk and listen to how they describe it and listen to, oh, I don't think about that at all. Oh, but this is, you know, I really care about that. So you get big insights into the, you know, sort of what are they hoping to accomplish? What's the job that they have to do? And it might just be buy something that I can sit on, but usually there's more to it than that. Oh, well, I also have to satisfy these other people in my household, or I have to, you know, so you can come up with a whole list of jobs and gains and pains. Questions about this so far before we move? I love listening to people describe how they make decisions, right? That's my business. So I could listen to this all night, but we need to move on because there's more to it. Okay, so once we've got this, and I say like, okay, once we've empathized, that's actually not a brief process, and you would keep doing it. And as you work on, you're starting to develop, you know, the business, you keep talking to people about it and you keep gathering additional insights. The next stage is define. So they describe it as in this design process, right? Create a point of view based on user needs and insights. So taking all those insights about the people that you've talked with, being able to as clearly as possible answer the question, what are their needs? What are they really looking for, is the next stage. And this is where this value proposition canvas, where we move from the right side to over toward the left. So on the right side, we're describing the target customers, target market segment, customer segment, identify who this is. And then we fill in the circle with insights from the discussions, the interviews, the focus groups that we've had with people from that target market, that market segment that we think we're aiming at, right? Once we have that filled in, and I should say, when often, you can do this online. It's really fun to do in person using sticky notes. You know, you make a big version of the circle, and then for each separate idea, put it on a sticky note and put it up there so you can start seeing really clear. You could write on paper, you could write online. Sticky notes can be color coded, so it works really well. Once you've got that right side completed, then comes the sort of brainstorming on the product and service side. Like, what can we provide that would address those gains that the folks that our target segment is looking for, that would relieve the pains that we've heard our target segment identify. And this is not I should say it's more like not a multiple choice question. There's not one answer to this question. There are many answers to the question. So here we're coming up with, definitely brainstorming, what could you provide what could you do that would deliver each of those different gains that this target segment has said they're interested in. Now, the gains are not all probably going to be feasible to address with one business. That's okay. At this point, you're just identifying kind of as many as you can, right? All the gains that people in the target segment said they're interested in, for each one, see if you can figure out a way to provide it, at least one way. Maybe there's multiple ways to provide it. Similar for the pains. For each of the pain points that they've identified, the barriers, the annoyances, identify at least one, preferably more than one, ways that you could address that. What's called here a pain reliever. And then on the very left is, how could you think about a product or a service or some sort of combination that could deliver many of these? Not all. You're not going to have one that addresses all the gains and all the pains. But you need to address enough of them that this customer will say, oh yeah, that's a way I could do this job. I could accomplish this job. All right. So I've provided a whole bunch of examples here in an effort to sort of give you an idea about how it can work. And just, how much detail could be there, right? So this example, we first look at the customer segment. It's a lower wage, hourly paid worker who's a parent. You say, okay, so what's their job? What are they trying to accomplish? Well, they want to, earn money so their family can survive. They have to send their kids to school. They also want to move up to jobs with higher pay and find enjoyable work. Oh, well, that's interesting. So what pains are they encountering now? Not enough income or unstable cash flow, but also limited time with my kids, running out of cash before the next payday. Lots of problem areas, right? Lots of things that they're really looking to avoid. I would call many of those more than just simple annoyances. I would say they're kind of present risk to this members of this segment. And then on the gains side, what would be great? What would be like a bonus benefit? Well, if it was, enabled them to improve the likelihood of promotion. That's part of, finding enjoyable work and moving up to jobs with higher pay. Help enhance my income, reduce volatility. So you can see in many of the examples too, a lot of the gains relate to the pains, but it's not a one-to-one mapping per se, because that doesn't really capture it. The gains are really, what would be some specific outcomes or benefits that you would appreciate? And they may or may not be related to those pains, the pain point areas. So that's the input information. They feel like they have a lack of career path and they're stuck in a low-paying job that isn't providing them a stable income, and it's requiring many hours away from their kids. And so we get a sense, right, of who this target customer might be. So on the And here's on the brainstorming side, right? Like, what could we do to, what could we provide that this customer would appreciate? So they're thinking, so whoever came up with this one was thinking a job performance tracker that's some sort of mobile app. It's like, huh, what could this do? Well, they are thinking, well, we could address a lot of the pains on the chart, right? We could gather data that would be easy for the user to keep track of and easy for them to provide to somebody else as evidence of how they perform. There's also additional like bonus, additional benefits that would be positive to have. Keeping track of concrete skills, like a skill, being able to provide evidence of different skill sets, providing exposure to other employers, helping the person with this skill set to find different kinds of work. And so on the product and service side, I'm motioning at my other screen here, is exactly what would it be? It's like, well, there's a lot of options. It could be a website, or it could be a mobile app, or it could be, linked to like career advice and trying to figure out what's an appropriate sort of career ladder that might work given the person's skill sets and where they're at. So at this point, they haven't, you're not locked into any one specific product. They've got kind of an area that they're working in. And ideally, you identify a whole bunch of different ways you could go, a whole bunch of different services or products or combination offers that could provide some of these gain creators and pain relievers that then will be attractive to this segment. I like this example. It's complicated, but that's real life. So I like the sense that it shows a lot of different kind of possibilities. You could probably chart 5 or 6 different businesses here pretty easily. You could identify different businesses just based on all the different information. I think that's pretty realistic. I think in a lot of situations, you're going to get different ideas from different members of that target segment. And so there probably are several ways to go in terms of how to provide services or products that could benefit them. Okay, a second example, this one. I looked at this one and I thought, oh, maybe a process like this was used to come up with the course management system that's in use at my school, right? So the customer segment were students at a specific school, and they have jobs to do when they're taking classes. And we see on the value proposition that ended up being offered, had to do with an easy way to share content and interact with everybody in the classes kind of on an ongoing basis, kind of an easy way to keep track of. I mean, this was pre-COVID, but this is like written for now that everything's online. Wow, it's really tough. And a lot of students are struggling to try and keep it all straight. You know what I'm talking about, right? Depending on what your learning management system is at your school. So looking at the pains, it's like, well, it's hard to know who's in my classes, hard to know how to contact those people. It's hard to know how up to date I am on all my assignments and the due dates. And there's no easy way to discuss with other people what's going on. And I mean, all those different pains, I looked at those and I think my students are experiencing many of those, right? And then what would they like in some sort of, system, academic support system? Well, ideally it would be well-designed and fun to use. And it's kind of integrated across all the different classes, all the different schools, all the different places on campus where they'd have to interact. Easy to use, easy to learn. It's like, okay, that gives you a good sense of kind of what they're looking for. And then you can see how some of the sort of brainstorming about, what could we provide that would provide that, what could we provide to like boost the benefits, the gains. Unlimited courses could be integrated into a single portal. Oh, that would be great. Also the pain relievers. And then on the purple part, the products and services, what could this look like? What do we want to try to design into the offer that we're going to make to them. And it's not the case that probably everything would be included, but it gives you a good starting point. There's one more example. This one is actually feels more simple. And I think this is what happens when, instead of using the value proposition canvas to conceive of a brand new offer, if you use it to describe something that's already out there, it usually gets simplified. You don't get the richness of the various jobs or the various pains and gains that somebody might experience. But in terms of kind of matching up about this sort of designer athletic shoe is kind of a nice example. So I'm not going to talk it through in detail. You're going to have the slides so you can come back to this if ever you want. Okay, I think we're not going to go through brainstorming as a whole on one specific project, but this is what your group should be starting to do now. You've talked, I'm hoping you've talked to some people about your ideas, and you're going to continue talking to people. You continue sort of enriching the right side of this value proposition canvas, your understanding of your target segment. And then keep, with that enrichment, you keep enriching, sort of adding to what could we do to provide extra benefits, gain creators? What could we do to really, really nail those pain points, our pain relievers? And how could our service be structured, or service product? How could it be structured? How could it be delivered? Maybe different levels at different prices. Those sort of product and service ideas all go in kind of that triangle on the far left. So one of the good things is in the slide set, and it's a PowerPoint deck, so you can easily actually print off these templates or use the ones that are online, and write on them and draw on them and color code them and pass them around and then revise them and revise them and revise them. And it can kind of sort of track kind of the evolution of your thinking about your business if you look at these over time, as you're thinking about your offer develops. Okay. There's one more example here, and I'm going to leave this to you to look at later, but when I read about this, when I read sort of the customer jobs and the pains and gains, it's like, I think I know what business this is describing. So I'll leave it to you to address that mystery later and see. And I put it there not just for fun to try and guess the company, but also another example, another chance to sort of look at it. What are the jobs that somebody's trying to do? And then what are they looking for in terms of benefits? What sort of pain points can you identify? See, Spencer's nodding. He's like, oh yeah, I've got this. It sounds very familiar, right? Okay. Finally,
is it Airbnb? Sorry, not. Is it Venmo?
See, that's my guess.
Venmo, yeah.
It sounds exactly like that, but I mean, it could be, I guess, an offer from a specific company too, maybe a bank or something. Finally, now though, we're at the point of saying, okay, back to what's a session about crafting your story? It's like, okay, once we've got that understanding of our target market, and we've become clearer, we're going to keep getting clarified, but you can work on this sort of now, and then it just keeps getting revised and revised. We have an idea about what we're going to do about it, what we're going to offer out there. Now we're ready. And in my perspective, what we do next, we're kind of ready now to be able to get more specific about our positioning strategy. It's not an advertising theme. It's much more strategic than that. It really does describe how we're going to be successful with this business. And basically, it hinges on understanding the customers well enough to know how we want them to think about us versus our competition and how we're going to succeed with them. So positioning strategy is not about positioning in the marketplace, not positioning in a store. It's nothing about shelf space, shelf position. Location in a store, it's positioning in the minds of your target market. How do you want those people to think about you, your offer versus the other things out there? And of course, you want them to like your offer better than the competition that's out there. So I got a little bit of writing here about positioning. The definition I put here, it is, you describe your strategy in a statement. That's the positioning statement. It's not a tagline. It's not an advertising slogan. It's nothing that specific, and it is not customer facing. It's for internal use. This is for people in the organization to really understand, so they're all on the same page. What are we doing? What are we doing, and how are we going to succeed? So you work together and you craft the positioning strategy, and then all the specific details you just refer back to your positioning strategy for guidance. It'll essentially show you how you should respond to all the details that you have to decide later on. So often when we're talking about positioning, how do you want people to think about your offer versus everybody else out there? How broadly do you want them to think about your company? Well, because companies offer a variety of different, benefits and different ways of doing it. But usually a positioning strategy focuses on one or a very small number of selling propositions. Normally we talk about the USP, unique selling proposition, which implies that there's just one of them, right? It's unique. But basically it's a clear, compelling, and consistent idea about how you're going to succeed. So usually you want to identify one. You can write several different positioning statements, several different positioning strategies for any one company, any one venture. And so you decide which of those looks most viable, or maybe you end up eventually combining two, possibly. You don't want it to get muddy. You want to be able to occupy, very clearly occupy, a clearly understood position in the minds of your target consumers, your target customers. So here's an example of a statement. So we can see who the target audience is, right? For the product. Young, active, soft drink consumers. What do they need? Well, they have little time for sleep, so they need energy. So this brand, what does it do? Well, here's the product category, soft drinks, that gives you more energy, main benefit, than any other brand. What's the supporting reason? Why? Because it has the highest level of caffeine. Okay, so even if we don't think this is a very healthy approach to take right now, we can see that, right? There's a kind of a unique selling proposition. It's about, we provide energy and here's how we do it. It's also notable here that Mountain Dew is the soft drink. They don't say we're the energy drink that does this, or we're the daytime drink that does this, or we're the, what sort of category are they competing in? How do they want their target segment to think of them? Oh, it's in the soft drink category. It's not in the lemon lime soft drink category, or it's not in the energy drink category, or it's not, there's different ways to define who your scope of competition is. And so that's part of this positioning statement, positioning strategy as well. Here's who we are and here's who we're up against. You don't need to name them by name, but you can indicate what category. So a lot of these positioning strategy discussions end up with kind of a Mad Libs approach to like fill in the blank. And it's like one sentence, you end up with one long sentence that describes, in a nutshell, describes your business. So I've provided actually a few different versions here, just because one of them may just strike you as being more usable than something else. They all function a little bit differently, but they're all accomplishing the same job, which is to indicate, who's the target segment, what makes us unique and better. You may want to include the competitive frame, give a sense of who do you see yourself competing with. And you may want to provide what enables us to make this claim, what enables us to be better, the underlying support reasons. So number 2 is a more simple version of a positioning template. Number 3 is from the Crossing the Chasm book, Jeffrey Moore. But here again, it's fill in the blank. You know, it just, you end up with a sentence that's slightly different, but same basic idea. You know, what is the key benefit, the compelling reason to buy? Unlike who else? What's our competition out there? What do we do that they don't do? The 4th example template is from the Value Proposition Design folks, the Strategizer organization. And there again, it's, you know, they call it ad libs, but it's a Mad Libs approach, sort of fill in the blank. These statements, they're not cast in stone. This is not a done, you write one, you're not done. That's not the end of the story. That's like the beginning of the story. And you keep revising and you keep revising and you keep considering and reconsidering as needed. So here's another example. So they don't talk specifically about what their realm of competition is, right? Would they compete with a physical planner, a book that you would write in? Maybe. You can see why they'd say they're better than a planner, right? Than something you have to write in, because you can access it from any of your devices. And what's it really good at? What's the main benefit it provides? You know, capture and remember moments and ideas. There's lots of, a photo album could do that too. But, you know, and then Evernote has thought about, you know, so what do they offer that's different than, that's better than other attempts to provide the same sorts of benefit. One final thing about positioning statements is often they will include some description of both points of differentiation and points of parity. What does that mean? So point of differentiation is, how are you different than, read better than your competitors? How are you different from what's already out there? Point of parity is like, how are we similar to what's already out there? Being really clear about where are we the same as other offers and where are we different from other offers, I think helps the members of the organization to really be able to pinpoint and get really clear about that. It also will help you convey that to others, whether they be investors or final end level consumers. So here's an example of the Mountain Dew approach with both point of differentiation and point of parity included. So you can see how this reads. Young, active soft drink consumers. So you got the target audience. This is the soft drink that not only tastes great, it's like, oh, that's similar, point of parity, right, to other soft drinks. Because if you're going to talk about energy, people might think energy drink, oh, those taste terrible, Red Bull, right? And so maybe they'd want to emphasize, no, it tastes great and it gives you more energy than any other soft drink brand. So where are we, you know, so you want to be similar in your competition on the good aspects. And then you want to say, you know, and we provide these extra advantages or extra benefits. This one gets more specific in terms of a tagline and ended up being the basis for advertising approaches. So we don't need to get there yet, but being able to write a positioning statement, one long sentence that kind of encapsulates your business idea. It's like, oh, well, that sets the stage for that. You know, I can describe that to people. It's almost like an elevator speech, right? And it sort of really distills it down to its essence. So I'm not going to try this right now, but this is the stage at which, once you gather some of that information from your target customers, you can start practicing, right? Start writing positioning statement options for your company. The final thing I wanted to say was, at this point in the project, at least in projects that I've dealt with in the past, students are often feeling completely overwhelmed. Oh my God, you've learned enough about your area to feel like, oh, there's so much we don't know. And it's just like this mass of, it'd be the left side of this, right? It's when you're gathering insights and gathering more insights and gathering more insights. And it's like, how does it fit together? And how can we make sense of it? And eventually over time, it kind of calms down. I think, eventually it says, you gain clarity and focus, and it smooths out. I think that's kind of an optimistic view. I don't think the right side of this is perfectly flat the way, especially not in startups. But it's maybe small ripples instead of these huge messy tangles of trying to find our way through this mess of opportunities and constraints and possibilities and everything. You just need to hang in there. You need to know that, yes, it's messy. Yes, there's lots of ways to go. And it'll be okay. You just keep gathering the information and keep talking to people about it, and keep working on organizing and distilling it, trying out different positioning strategies, statements, until something will click and say, oh, I think that could work. And you may end up with 2 or 3 different possible ventures related to the same basic product category. That's fine. That's great, actually. You have more to choose from then. So, so we've talked about almost all of this stuff. This diagram that I started with, I didn't explain at the start, but I thought, well, by the time we get done, it's like, well, we can see kind of how this fits. This market positioning really is the basis for how you're going to describe your idea, your venture proposal to anybody out there. So I think, I really do believe it's the most useful sort of sentence that you will construct around your business. I'm at Seattle University. I'm reachable anytime online, as many of us are these days. And I wanted to say, feel free to email me anytime you have any questions, if you want to bounce any ideas off, or just, I'm happy to support in any way I can.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for April?
Yeah, I overwhelmed you.
You've got to thank you. Yeah, you gave them a lot to think about.
I have a question, specifically as it pertains to messaging around sustainability. Do you have any advice for companies who want to avoid labels of greenwashing?
Well, where you would start with that, I think, is you talk to your target audience. Who are you aiming it at? I mean, you're aiming for people, they wouldn't necessarily need to be super sustainable in their approach, right? Maybe if you get really skillful upholsterers, you could have beautiful furniture and they would not even need to know that it was redone, right? That it was secondhand. For those, I think it really does start with understanding, talking to people in your target audience segment and seeing, do they think about it? For some people, used furniture is a negative. I don't want something that someone else has had. And for other people, it's a huge positive. Usually, so gross generalization, for many target markets, sustainability is kind of like a nice extra. It's one of those extra gains that, it needs to perform just as well or better on all the usual dimensions. And then you can say, oh, and a bonus is that it's, and you'd want to think about, nice to have, not need to have. You'd want to think about how you phrased it too. This is why you need to talk to people to find out whether you want to say pre-owned, or whether you want to say repurposed, or whether you want to say, rebuilt, or whatever you don't want to in the case of the furniture, you wouldn't want to describe it in a way that's going to turn off parts of your audience. So you can figure that out ahead of time by talking to people.
I also have an answer for this, because I was actually on a call today. I was watching a California Recycling Commission meeting, and I would say that one answer is transparency. You've got to be transparent, because this guy was promoting this product that he has that is made out of methane, by the way, and it makes plastics. It's bioplastics. He kept saying it's not plastics, but the reality is, when I went to his website, it is a bioplastic. So he kept not using the correct word for what he was. He kept saying it's a natural product when in fact it's made of it's a bioplastic. And then
Well, natural gas is natural, right?
yeah, I know. And then he said that it's 99% this thing, PBH, whatever it was. And then he never said what the other 1% was, which immediately made you think, okay, is that toxic chemicals? So then one of the commissioners said to him, well, you know, I think we're talking about maybe in California requiring transparency and labeling where you have to list all the ingredients. And that was a very pointed question to him about the fact that he really wasn't being transparent. So I think one of the biggest problems with greenwashing is the lack of transparency on the people promoting their various products.
Yeah, you know, it's the Federal Trade Commission has looked at the problem of greenwashing over the years, and they've issued guidelines. They've never issued regulations about it. But the guidelines, if you look at the most recent ones, and I encourage you to do that. Just, I mean, if you're at all interested in making sustainability related claims, because they're very clear. And basically they're like, just tell the truth. Don't make claims that you can't back up with evidence. And they give, it's an FTC website, but they give lots of examples in language that everybody can read. I mean, it's not a legalese kind of document at all. So it's really interesting. In these days, with so many different kinds of businesses, you know, your website allows you to tell the story, to provide the background, to give the evidence, to be transparent. You can take the cameras into, you know, you film, you know, video segments in the upholstery area, or you take the piece of furniture and you show how it changes over the course of, you know, you can explain your process in such detail that I think you can avoid the problem of greenwashing just in how you provide information. And whether it's going to, whether the sustainability aspects are even of interest depends on who your target audience is. And then, yeah, I think you can be, you know, responsible in how you talk about it, and you wouldn't have to make up anything. I mean, it's a great story all by itself, right? So just sort of sharing that, a lot of people are going to say, whoa, I really like the sounds of that. Yeah. And even if, I mean, you would want to think about the kinds of concerns that Heather had with her, the fabric, and whether it had toxins in the type of fabric that's used and all of that. So you would want to, you know, think about, what are those people going to care about? What kinds of questions would they likely ask? And then you could address them on your website, you know, so that it's not even a concern for them. They'll know.
Thank you both. That was helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the link to those FTC guidelines is in your chat window here on Zoom.
I challenge you to take a look at them. You think it's going to be scary, complicated, boring, and it's actually like they say, do this, not that, and they give examples. It's quite readable, and it's also it's such common sense. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you again, April. And here we go. And as she mentioned, she's available at Seattle University. That's her email down at the bottom. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation. I hope everybody felt that they got enough to chew on. I think people will be coming back to look at this. And the slides will be available, if not tomorrow, by the time the Wednesday update goes out. In fact, I think maybe this week we'll make the Wednesday update a Tuesday update, just to get it out there a little quicker. Great thanks to our hackathon support team. We call them the I-Team: Kelly Farmer, Marco Julie, Lisa Monroe, Morissette Alvarez, and Adam Kubota. As always, if anybody has any questions about the content in tonight's workshop, if any of the teams need any support, if you just want to chat about the hackathon, feel free to reach out and contact either Xenia or myself. we are available. You can get to us on Slack. It looks like most teams are up on Slack at this point, but don't be shy. Reach out if you need anything. Thank you everybody for attending, and we will see you next week, week 4, for our final webinar on actually presenting your story and getting it down on video. Thank you and good night.